Good morning, everybody. How y'all doing? In the chat, we have Jack Pines in first with Trail Dust, Transcendental Artist Studios, uh, Ulbert, Ulbert Forge, Deranged Metal Ironworks, Pentoons, and more people filtering in. Hello, hello, also to all the lurkers out there. What is up? How y'all doing? It is a beautiful sunny day, and I've got yard work to do. I really think I need to get the whippersnipper out to the front, and I got some grass out there by the road that's about 2 foot tall, 3 foot tall. I need to knock it down.
What do you
But
call it,
it-
Yamis?
Ever since,
Huh? It is
ever since Adam,
it is a weed whacker.
yeah, ever since Adam introduced us to the term whippersnipper, I really can't call it anything else.
I can't either.
I'm Australianizing you one blacksmith at a time.
It's a whippersnapper.
Yeah, my daughter's like, what the fuck is a whippersnipper?
Right? Anyway, so how y'all doing on this beautiful Sunday morning? I suppose we could just jump right into the stop drinking your coffee on screen. No, I'm just kidding. I'm Adam.
Exactly.
How was your week?
I've got to advertise.
Yeah. So my week was it was a week. So yeah, I had my doctor's appointment Tuesday. I think Tuesday was the day that the internet guy came to my house too, and he was working on that all day. He was still there when I left to come back to work, and yeah, I wound up forgetting like half of the stuff I needed at home that I needed to bring back with me to finish my monthly project. Yeah, I forgot my touch mark. I forgot my. I can't even. I had a whole list of stuff that I forgot, and I forgot what the list was. But oh, my hammer handles and all kinds of other stuff. Yeah, this month's monthly blacksmith challenge was using 36 inches of angle iron, 2-inch or less. Make whatever you want. You just can't add any material. And I was like, okay, well, this would be fun. I'll make a hammer because I love making hammers. It's just, for me, it's so much fun. And so I went to Ace Hardware, and I spent an exorbitant amount of money on a piece of angle iron. And I bought a 4-foot chunk, and I cut 1 foot off. And then, yeah, then I proceeded to cut it into plates and stacked them up and forge welded them all together, and did the whole punch and fullering, and at the everything was good. And the final drifting, I was drifting it for the final little bit after doing the fullers, and one of the forge welds failed, and it didn't split right in half, but I had a crack run right down the middle of it. And so I was like, I don't have a handle for it. I'll have to go buy one. And of course it was low enough quality I wouldn't have touch marked it anyways, but and then finally, I was just like, "Yeah, no, you know what? I don't have the energy. I don't have the motivation. I'm just throwing in the hat on this one." And I took that billet there, and I stood it up on my striking anvil and wailed on it with the sledgehammer. And on the second whack, it broke in half. And I was like, "There you go." So that was that week. I've been a little bit out of sorts because I'm out of balance at the time, and it's going to be about another week before I get that stuff not figured out, but straightened out. And yeah, other than that, been getting a little bit of work in, just enough to stay busy and stay focused. I spent a good part of a day the other day rearranging my room so that I've got a slightly, next time I do a stream from the room there, I'll have a slightly different view. And yeah, that's about the long and short of it. I think that I had something else. Oh yeah, I know what it was I wanted to discuss or mention. So apparently the cicada invasion is in full force on the East Coast already. And apparently in North Carolina, people have been calling the cops with noise complaints about the cicadas. Like what are they going to do? Go arrest the cicadas? I mean, yeah, that's North
Yeah,
Carolina for you, though. That's
tiny
all
little
I got.
handcuffs. Tiny little handcuffs. No, I'm to touch on that. I'm over in North Carolina. It's really weird that I'm hearing about all these reports of like cicadas, invading North Carolina and everything. I'm in North Carolina. I ain't even heard cicadas yet. That whole
Well, it's good.
17 year cicada thing. Huh?
17s and 22s. There's two different broods that hatch this year. It happens once every like 160 years or something like that. But it's actually the entirety. It isn't the entirety of North America. It just kind of will work its way across. It's not. It doesn't all happen on the same day.
Right. Well, it's like I remember, when I was in Illinois, it's like the 16-year cicada or 17-year cicada when they would come out, and it's like you could use a snow shovel, one scoop, and it's full of cicadas. Like just that thick on the ground, and it's nuts. It's like I've heard that it's all across the country, and this and that, and it's like maybe I've seen about 5 or 6 cicadas here. It's nuts. It's like I'm kind of looking forward to this year for cicadas just because they're tasty. I ain't seen them in freaking forever. So looking forward to that when that finally does hit the coast. If it hits the coast. If not, I guess I could always just order some cicadas off of Amazon or something.
That just sounds like an average day here. I don't even hear the cicadas anymore because they're just
it's
synonymous with the Australian bush sounds.
Yeah, it can get like ear-piercingly loud, but I mean, it's like the people who complain about it, you do get used to it really quickly. Maybe I just adapt a lot easier. It's like, oh, yep, it's noisy today. What's up, Caitlin? But yeah, so so you're cicadas. Anyway, to you, Adam. Did you have anything else there for your week aside from your forge welded hammer? That's exactly what I thought about doing.
Yeah, no, and see, and the messed up. Well, the only other thing I guess, like, really, the messed up thing is in the Instagram chat, like, people were like, well, what the heck are we gonna do with just angle iron? And then people started like listing off things you could do with it, and my initial idea was I was gonna do feathers, right? I was gonna get some small angle iron and do a bunch of little feathers, and I thought that would be really neat. But then the way the chat went, it sounded like a lot of people were going to be doing feathers. So I was like, I don't want to just do, piggyback on that idea. So that's why I decided. Yeah, that's why I decided to forge weld up all of my angle iron into a billet and make a hammer out of it. But in hindsight, I probably should have just got a stick of aluminum and made feathers.
If I had time, I would have made a single piece scrolled boot scraper.
Speaking of that, Yamas, are you going to go live tonight?
I am not. I have some stuff going on tonight that has been in the plans for a week, and it was originally going to be at 9, then it was going to be at 8, and then some plans shifted, and I believe we're starting at like 6.
That's all right, because
if you would like
because I've been meaning to get out to the forge all week, and pretty much tomorrow morning for me, which is this evening for you guys, will be my final chance to actually get out and do something. So bright and early, I might actually annoy my wife and the neighbors and start the forge early and actually do my project, because I have the plan. I've had the plan the whole month. It's just I haven't had the ability to action it, and that actually leads into how was my week, because I've also had a week. For those of you that have been around for a while, you would know that end of last year, I bought a tractor. and it's been relatively good. It's been a good little workhorse around the property. Anyway, so this week, end of last week, this all started. I actually got so we have here in the Northern Territory of Australia, we have 2 fire respondent groups. So we have the Darwin General Fire and Emergency Response, which is generally for the town of Darwin, the city of Darwin, city of Palmerston, the city of Casuarina. So they have like your typical firefighters, big fire engines, all that type of thing. Where I live, we're outside of that municipal area that gets serviced by the anti-fire and rescue. So we have the Northern Territory Bushfire Brigade here, and most of the bushfire brigades in the Northern Territory are volunteers. However, they do have the same, very similar training, and they have basically 4x4, what you guys would call 4x4 trucks. We have the Toyota 4x4 utes with firefighting equipment out, which means they can go all terrain, particularly here in rural areas, and fight fires. And the second mob that so they're pertinent to the story. So they're one group, and the second group is we have the Northern Territory Weeds Council. Now, in the Northern Territory of Australia, we have a very invasive species of grass called gamba grass from South Africa, which grows to about 10 foot tall and burns extremely hot when we get wildfires, what we call bushfires. Now, bushfires here in Northern Territory happen every year, and they can be very destructive, particularly when the winds are up and we have these grasses, because these grasses burn hot enough to burn steel. Now, the law recently changed in Australia, in the Northern Territory, where our fire breaks, every property has to have a fire break, and our fire breaks have now, by law, increased from 8 metres to 15 metres. And I had my 8 metre boundaries in. However, end of last week, I received a letter and a warning from Bushfire Council and the Northern Territory Weeds Council regarding my fire breaks and the amount of gamba grass that I have on my property, that I need to control and maintain, control the gamba and maintain my boundaries. Which I hate gamba grass. I'm in the process of destroying it and doing that anyway. But I've only had the property for about 3 years, and of course well, you guys don't know, but gamba takes about 7 years to eradicate once you get on top of it. So I've only had 3 years and I'm not on top of it yet. So basically, in order to avoid a rather hefty fine, I've had to go flat out and try and get my fire breaks bigger and maintain them a bit better. So that's what I've been absolutely trying to do in this last week. And so my wife and I have been out on whippersnipper, which we put a brush cutting blade on, and we've been out there manually slashing the gamba grass out to a 15-meter boundary. However, I wanted to use my tractor to do it, but I needed to do a full service. So I did that. I took 3 days. It took me 3 days to do a complete service on my tractor, because my tractor happens to be a very, very unique tractor. It's a Massey Ferguson 30 French built, which was only produced for 1 year, and built in France. It's all in metric, which is wonderful, except there's no service manuals for them. There's an operator's manual, but no general maintenance and service manual that I can find anywhere. Yeah, one of those blades.
I love these things.
Anyway, yeah, they're great for cutting heavy weeds. But so I did my service, and then got out and slashed my 8 meter boundaries to make sure they were all good, and I started to work some land, some of the weeds back to the 15 meter boundary, when I heard a major clunk in my engine of the tractor, and it started rattling very badly. And I think I've done the main bearings in the motor. So luckily, it's a fairly common 3-cylinder Perkins diesel, but that kind of ruined ruined my week because that happened on Friday. And so, of course, I've still had to work on the boundaries. So Saturday and some of today, my wife and I were again back out with the brush cutter, with the whipper stipper, with the brush cutting blade, and slashing those areas by hand. Now, I have 40 acres, which is 16 hectares. My boundaries are 2 kilometers long. So that's about a mile long is my boundary. So I have to do that all. And that's 15 meters, which is what? 3 times 15. 45. That's 45 feet back from the boundary fences all the way around that I have to have cleared from gamba. So 45 feet by 2 miles.
Well,
Gamba grass is a invasive species from South Africa.
now how's it stalk? Is it sturdy or is it
It is very sturdy, particularly at the base, a little woody and very thick. It grows. It can grow in clumps of up to a foot wide.
Does that boundary go? Have to encircle your property? So is that like 2 kilometers, 45 feet wide, all the way around for like a total of 8 miles? I mean, 8 kilometers.
My entire boundary is 2 kilometers long, so that's all the way around. So yeah, it's 45 feet or 15 meters.
Yeah, circumference
from the boundary's edge all the way around. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
A circumference of 2 miles, 2 kilometers.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So it's 45 feet by the total length is 45 feet by 2 miles.
Well, you could.
And I've got it.
Actually, what was it? 1.6 kilometers in a mile, something like that. So it's a mile and a quarter,
and a bit,
45 feet wide. Fuck, that is
a sling blade.
Whippersnapper.
So a sling blade or a scythe wouldn't work.
No.
Okay.
Oh, well, it would, but it would be a lot more effort.
Mm-hmm.
But no. So here, while you're waiting on the part to arrive, if you've got the authorities watching you and going, you better be doing something, you could literally go out there with like shears or something and you'd be like, look, I'm doing it. I got a part waiting. Yeah. I ain't just being lazy, Yeah.
Exactly. And we have to make, and we've had the fireys, because my wife works at the gas station, the service station. And so the fireys go into there regularly, and the head fiery actually went in and commented on the fact that they can hit, because they're the headquarters for our local bushfire brigade is actually probably about 2 miles from our place, and they can hear us, and when they're driving past, they've seen us actively working on our boundary. So they have seen us making headway, but that's the fireys. That's good on they'll stick up on their behalf, but when it comes to the NT Weeds Council, which is an entirely different body, they still might get on our case. And when it comes to burning, we're not allowed to burn off until we have those 15-meter boundaries. So we can't do a fuel reduction burn because gamba has a tendency to explode and make fire fleas and fling them, up to 45 meters.
What the fuck, Australia? Pardon my French.
That
is not acceptable. That is not acceptable for there to be a country on this planet where not only every insect, invertebrate, whatever, is literally able to kill you, and then you've got those trees where if you walk under it, you turn into a pile of bones. Now you have grass that if it ignites, it explodes. Y'all need to be under a dome so none of that escapes.
So needless to say, I've been busy. I've been very, very, very busy. It's no exaggeration to say I've been working sun up till sundown. I've been working past sundown. When I was working on my tractor, I had floodlights set up on top of, because I was servicing my tractor right beside my little temporary workshop where my forge is. I did have to actually start my forge this week because as part of the service of the tractor, I'm not sure what they're called, but anyone who knows tractors, they've got the particularly the 3-point linkage. They've got those things that hang down that you can screw up and adjust that actually help hold up the bottom linkages. I forget what they're called. Screw linkages, I think they're called. But one of them was bent and cracked. So I actually had to heat it up, forge it back down into shape, and then weld it up. And luckily I could do that because it was like I said, it's a 1960. I think my tractor was built between 1964 and 1965. So back in the era where these things were still luckily forged. So I forged it, forged it back down to bent it back down to the right shape once I heated it up in the forge, and then welded it, electro welded the crack and made it all nice and pretty. So I did a little bit of forging, but I just haven't had an opportunity to complete the Blacksmith Challenge for this month, which is the angle iron thing that Alexis was mentioning before. I do have a plan for it though, so I'll be getting.
That's all forehead. This is all forehead. Sorry, I got distracted by looking at my face. So Trail Dust in the chat. Trail Dust in the chat says, "Are the rocks safe?" And I said, they probably explode too.
Well, okay, so
it'd be like, actually, there is this.
Kinda. So I live as everyone knows, I live in the Northern Territory of Australia, and I used to work in Kakadu National Park, which is well renowned.
Sulfur mines.
One of the biggest national
uranium
parks. Well, I worked in a uranium mine.
Yeah.
Which is in that Kakadu National Park. But it's called the uranium, where the uranium deposit is located is called the Pine Creek Geosyncline. So it is a band of natural or rare earth minerals that include gold, lead, silver, copper, tin, iron, uranium that run from Kakadu through past Pine Creek and is about 150 kilometers wide, and runs all the way down to past Catherine, about halfway, about a quarter of the way down the Northern Territory. It's massive. But as a result of that, there is a slightly higher than what is average for the rest of the world radioactivity to Northern Territory.
That explains this. Anyway,
I can't see it yet on a delay, and you're not live on my. But it does explain. Yes, now I've seen it. But yeah, so needless to say, I will probably be going live this evening, and annoying the neighbours and doing my little project. You can tune in to Speargrass Forge on YouTube if you want to see what I'm doing. No, I don't know. I don't think I can access this from my phone.
Oh, from the phone. Okay, I got you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I don't have it set up. I don't have a computer or anything set up out in my little workshop. That will be for my big workshop. However, because my tractor has kind of decided to go, my wife has agreed to prioritize the completion of my big workshop and the associated little workshops for the tractor and everything that are down in the other area. So that's been moved to the top of the priority list so I can eventually fix the tractor. So that should be done sooner rather than later. So that's my news for the week, and that big, long spiel. So, yeah.
My week was good. All right, on to the topic. No. So, nope. As per
I was going to say, who has final thoughts?
Yeah, who has and now for our final thoughts.
You two can get screwed. Last week you're bagging me out not only about the week before where I was rambling for 45 minutes.
Okay.
And you happened to pick at Yamez, but then you're picking on my writing. I can't help it. I write in cursive and you can't read it.
I read it fine. But anyway, so as for my week, it's been, your standard work week, busy, get done and work. Had been working on a really awesome property down in Manio. Beautiful freaking waterfront property. Fun job too. It's a second story edition. I mentioned that last week. Still working on that one. But yeah, it was at my brother's mom-in-law came down to visit, or is down to visit, and we had a bonfire Friday. We, all the brush and yard work stuff that I've been scooping up and grabbing and piling up, and that, some of the fence posts that I pulled down to replace, which, speaking of which, I still need to dig some new holes and rebuild that fence. Alexis is the one right by the dumpster, for reference. But we burned that, and that was a blast. Started drinking again, and that's a blast. And then yesterday we all went down to the beach and hung out and went to visit the tourist shops. So, and I downloaded throughout the day and night. Finally got Baldur's Gate 3 is installed on my computer, and I'm looking forward to sparking that up when I have some time. I've got a few hours of yard work to do, then I might try it out, and then I've got my stuff going on later today. So that was my week. Let me see, last Sunday, I forgot about that. It was after the show, so I had to tell you guys. Yeah, we played, I played my first round of an actual campaign in Dungeons and Dragons tabletop, and holy cow, what a blast. What a freaking blast it was. And we're doing it again today. We are starting off by facing against a mosquito demigod. I don't know if I don't. Oh wait, no, that was Saturday last week, so I did bring it up last Sunday. That's right. Okay, never mind. That's all old news. You guys know about that. And I brought that up in the chat here last week, and some of you had expressed interest in potentially doing a D&D campaign thing. I will say that I could talk to my brother and sister-in-law about that. She is wanting to become or do a DM, or do a campaign, like be a DM. So Ben Toombs, first ever, what class are you? I am a gnome barbarian. I am a gnome barbarian. And
is it sad that I have a character created on D&D Beyond, but I've never actually used it because every time I've tried to set up a D&D game, it's fallen over?
We will try and get one going here, and if I will try and make somewhere where it's like there's a sign-up sheet for who would be interested in playing, and we will try and come up with a time frame of when we can do it. I have another Discord that I am building right now specifically for gaming, and it's my gaming project, the side thing that I'm doing, and it will have a D&D section. So we absolutely can set some stuff up and even provide help with that. So anybody who's interested, we can, get some stuff going. All right. So when I say let me know if you're interested in that, absolutely hop on the Discord and either shoot me a message or tag me and let me know, and I'll try and get a list going. Okay, don't just put it in the chat here. I'll never remember it. And we'll gauge. He's not a dwarf. He's a halfling. Ben Toombs. I will say I was at Lowe's over this week getting some material, and I met somebody who is shorter than Ben. Okay, the lady at the checkout. I was trying not to be rude, but it's like I casually went and stood next to her and kind of like put my hand up, about the top of her head, and you guys can't even see it. Oh yeah. And I'm like, all right, just under my nipple. And then I went to the truck and I grabbed my tape measure, and I'm like, to the mark that I had on my shirt, 4'6". It was like, Anyway, here I am going off on stuff that is no way do I need to fight or do it. So I can cut that off early. With that, I believe this is the last episode on Anvils. So anything that you want to get out now's the time to get it out. So much ado about Anvils. Last week we talked about the Mastermere find and Viking stake anvils, and I kind of came to the realization that it might actually be a little easier to have, rather than trying to have a stump with a 50-pound single anvil. It might be easier to just have a collection of stake anvils that you just toss in a bag, and when you get to where you're going, you just mount them and boom, go. And so yeah, it's
Yep.
a lot of like, I hadn't even thought of it like that. Everybody goes, oh, it's how could they do such small anvils? Oh, it's so much more efficient with a big 275-pound German pattern anvil or something. It's like, sure. But I'm assuming Adam's got his responses to last week's episode that I very likely butchered, but for some reason seemed to be very entertaining.
Well, I didn't actually pick up any responses because mainly you read from my my chicken scratchings, as you put it. Like I said, someone in the chat earlier said, I write with an Australian accent.
Yeah, you do. You did. You did. And we tried to read it in Australian accent.
I heard that. You two never, ever, ever, ever do that again.
You're not here to stop us.
That goes for you too, Alexis.
Oh, come on. It wasn't that bad.
It was terrible.
It was.
It was terrible. But anyway, so I don't really have any responses because you did well in actually reading what I put down there, Yamis. And you added I was actually rather impressed because the things that you added off the top of your head were relatively accurate. So
why is that surprising? Why would I show an inkling of intelligence and go, oh, I'm so surprised? You know what?
Because you usually show off the clown, not the intelligence behind it. Right.
I shouldn't have said that. I actually enjoy playing the village idiot.
Exactly. But yes. Just to cover one more thing before we go any further. At the start of the
nope.
It's just been brought up again about a Cuban sandwich. The reason don't mute me, I will write it down. The reason why this conversation started is because about the Cuban sandwich is because I find, as everyone has been a long-term listener knows, that Yamez likes to stir me up with ancient alien stuff, right? He likes to watch the veins on my forehead pop and and steam come out of my ears regarding ancient aliens. And I finally found what ticks Yamez off. And that is to call a Cuban sandwich. And I'm probably going to get quite a few people in the chat a little bit annoyed this. But to call a Cuban sandwich a glorified toasted ham sandwich or grilled ham and cheese sandwich, as some of you might call it.
Demonetized.
I'm watching him getting frustrated right in front of me now. And it's
demonetized. We're canceled. That's it. We're officially canceled. A Cuban sandwich. A Cuban sandwich is,
because it wouldn't be a blacksmithing podcast or chat without some mention of food.
A Cuban sandwich, for those who don't know, is one of the most delicious sandwiches in the world. Okay. It is Spanish pork, which is basically a mojo marinated pork. Okay. Spanish pork, deli ham, sliced pickle the long way, mustard mayo in a 50-50 combo mix, Swiss cheese, good Swiss cheese, not that store brand crap. Swiss cheese on Cuban bread, which when you think of Cuban bread, think of it as something along the lines of a wide French bread, but with a softer crust, not a hard crust. And then you take that, you put that together, and you put it on a flat top or on a grill, and press it with, you can take a brick wrapped in tinfoil and press it flat. And you cook it like that. You butter the outside of it, and it gets just nice golden crust. And you slice it in half, and you enjoy it. It is the most delicious thing. And as a matter of fact, just had a thought.
It's a glorified toasted cheese sandwich. Ham
Your
cheese
face
sandwich.
is a glorified ham and cheese sandwich. I have here a Cuban sandwich that needs to be pressed still. Okay. This is Cuban bread. I'm not opening it because I'm not eating it till later. But this is Cuban bread. Oh my God. I almost want to just eat it now. Oh.
Anyway, so that's the reason for the whole Cuban thing at the start of the chat, for those of you that were curious. But yes. And I know I've just opened up a can of worms, and it's Yamez, I can see why you like to stir me up, but it's glorious to finally get you back. Anyway, so on the topic of anvils, as Yamez said, we have talked about, our modern styles of anvils. We've talked about the Master Mere Finder and mini anvils. So what I personally wanted to cover today was improvised anvils, or when you don't have an anvil. So particularly with the Master Mere Finder, one of the things that we've learned from that is you don't need a 200-pound, 125-pound, 100-pound anvil to work on. You can work on something that's really small. So despite there being many companies out there creating modern and well-priced anvils of varying quality, the simple fact is that an anvil is still a decent expense, one of the few tools that is essential to blacksmithing. There are many of us out there that for a variety of reasons can't get a hold of a quote-unquote real anvil, be that due to your location, cost, transport, or simply a lack of available anvils. So what else can we use? As we talked about last week, ancient Smiths used anvils as small as 1 inch along the length and 1.5 inch wide, made of raw iron that were lodged into a sump that provided mass under hammer, which is the most important aspect. One of my friends here in Australia, Matthew, I forget his YouTube name. He hasn't posted for a while, but he once used a granite stone as an anvil just to prove that it could be used. Yamez has used sledgehammer heads brick, and all that type of thing. Cinder block, yep, bricks,
marble.
So there's two initialisms that, and I call them initialisms because they're abbreviations, so to speak, that are very important to this particular conversation. One is ASO, or anvil-shaped object, and the other is ALO, or anvil-like object. Now, there's the reason why they have two different acronyms, initializations, is because they're two different things. One of them is an object that is shaped like an anvil, but may not be very useful as an anvil. So, for example, Yamez has a pillow that is an ASO. It's an anvil-shaped object, but it would be completely useless as an actual anvil. Now,
unless I use a specific hammer.
Yeah. We don't want to talk about your hammer, Yamez. but yeah, so we there are many things out there that are ASOs. For example, a lot of anvils that may be cast iron from countries that have a very poor manufacturing history. I'm not going to name names, but you get these anvils from them, from those from manufacturing companies from not like those, generally in budget hardware stores. And they're good for light, small work, but for any actual serious use as an anvil from a blacksmith perspective, they are very average. So while they can work for a time, and a lot of people use them for a long time, as long as you use them in a thoughtful manner, they can be used and for a while. So I have to make that caveat, because insofar as cast iron anvils can form decently as an anvil, there are smiths out there that you do use these, create good quality work, and have done so on these types of anvils for years. It can be luck of the draw on quality. But if a cast ASO is all you can reasonably have access to, by all means use them. Just be aware of the issues that they may not be the best. So next, of course, we're talking an anvil-like object. So unlike an ASO, an ALO is conversely a tool that may not look like an anvil, but performs well as one. So there's many examples of these, like we just discussed: sledgehammer, cinder block, a lump of granite or other hard, dense stone, a section of axle from a large truck machinery, a counterweight, an old tractor counterweight is a good one of what as well. So all these are generally, the particular first ones are generally medium to high carbon steel. However, that's not essential. All you have to do is have access to a moderate size piece of mild steel. As long as it has a flat surface, it will work. Mild steel will still be susceptible to damage from errant blows and whatnot. It's generally called marring, but it's unlikely to fracture or shatter like a cast anvil will, or cast iron anvil will. Sorry, being specific, because of course you do get cast steel anvils. And these things can operate as a very adequate beginner's anvil. As many people may know, my first anvil when I started, my very first anvil was a cast steel gold stamp block. So from a pre-1900s gold crusher. So it was a round hammer type object that was attached to a cam type system, and it would crush up stone to release gold from hard rock. That was my very first anvil. It was an ALO. My next anvil, of course, and those of you that have seen my videos from when I started getting back into blacksmithing a few years ago now, or started becoming serious in blacksmithing a few years ago now, was Tiny, which was a forklift tine anvil. It was something I cut up and made anvil shaped, simply for the aesthetic of it.
I get it.
I did a lot of good work on that.
You called your anvil Tiny?
Mm.
Because it was made from a tine?
Yes.
I just got that now.
Are you kidding?
Shut up.
I thought you knew that. My golly.
I literally just got that joke. I just literally got it too. I was like, oh, tiny. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're too clever for the rest of us.
Oh my God. I thought you guys understood that years ago.
No.
I literally just thought it was a reference to the size. And until just now, when you said forklift tine, I was like, ah.
Yep.
But I've got the self-depreciating, streak in me where I will admit that it took me forever to get a joke. You're so punny. Please continue.
Okay, so just to pick up on Deranged, so Deranged Iron Metalwork said, my anvil is an ASO. I cut up and stacked and welded a forklift tine. It's 100 pounds. That's an ALO. It might be anvil shaped, but it's also anvil-like. So you have an anvil-like object, an ALO. That's absolutely fine. That's exactly what mine was.
A
Mine. Well,
Bakos.
I still have tiny.
A Bakos is
Yeah.
an ALO. You know, Bakos, a big ass chunk of steel. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly, and that's fine. And like I said, you can use a mild steel anvil. A really, really great example of what seems to be a mild steel. It's not. It's high carbon steel, but a Sawyer's anvil. So Alex from Valhalla Ironworks has an old Sawyer's anvil. Now, compared to a lot of other anvils, Sawyer's anvils are soft. Most anvils generally have a Rockwell hardness between 60 to 63, 64. A Sawyer's anvil has a Rockwell hardness of 56 to 59. That were designed to work on saws and saw blades and whatnot. So they're a little bit softer. But they're literally, you come across a Sawyer's anvil, it is a square block of steel. Sometimes they may have a hardy hole in them. Pritchell hole. Most of the time they don't. Most of the time they are literal blocks of steel. So if you have access to a counterweight, something flat and heavy, that is fine. A lot of people have we've all seen railroad track anvils, either shaped like an anvil and attached to a stump that way, or what's more efficient is up on end and attached to a stump that way. That's perfectly reasonable as well. The entire point, like the ancient anvils of the ancient Romans, of the Nordic peoples, of smiths all over the world back through history, was massed under the hammer. And as we've discussed previously on this channel, we're talking, people use rocks. They may have used, bronze anvils. The thing about that, we don't have much evidence of ancient anvils simply because things get recycled. We do it ourselves. I mean, I don't know how many of you guys have, broken a tool and gone and reforged it into something else, or, you've got updated a tool and you've broken your old one down and reused it for something else. This is something that was common, that happened throughout history. One of the things that go, Yamis, I can see you waving and
it's
whatnot.
on the exact subject. I was going to wait until final thoughts for it, but it's exactly topical to what you just said. And it's an anecdote story thing. Many of you guys saw it happen. I think it was live with the before Bob from B&B Forge moved up to the frozen tundra. Denise told him he had to come and forge with me in my shop before he was allowed to move. He came, and one of the big things that he really wanted to do, he brought a hammerhead that was, I think, his grandfather's or something like that, or his dad's, that he wanted to repurpose and turn into a tomahawk or a hatchet, and he was really excited about it. We heated it up. First hit, it was cast. It was like, oh. So be careful with repurposing old tools. Try to determine what they are, but make sure that they're not cast before you heat it up and smash it with a 4-pound hammer, and explode molten freaking cast iron all over your shop. I have to throw that caveat. I mean, because you don't expect it to happen, and it can be very dangerous.
Yeah, and that's something that happens. That's that we have to be aware of as modern smiths. Back in throughout history, it wasn't something that was much of a problem. When if a smith repurposed his anvil or broke down a tool or whatnot, he generally knew what it was made of. So
True.
it's more of an issue now. But that's part of the reason why we don't have many historical examples of anvils and whatnot, because these were tools that got recycled. even now, if like at the start of the month we spoke about the what was it called? The just a second. The Moses Anvil, which is one of the from the colonial times of the US, when the US was first being colonized. There's not many examples of that anvil, and that's only 250, 300 years ago. It's not that old. So we as blacksmiths have been recycling old tools and recycling iron for as long as iron's been around. So we don't have many examples of old anvils. We have a lot of variety, but we don't have, considering how many smiths have been throughout history, you'd think that there would be more if it wasn't for what we do is recycling and repurposing. So further on from that, particularly if you have the privilege of looking at blacksmith shops from countries that may not be as industrialized as ours. So, and I'm talking, for example, Pakistan, the Philippines, rural India, and Africa. Some of the things that these guys use as anvils is very, very innovative. They don't have the same pre-conditioning on what an anvil should be as we do here in the West. So, there are one of my favorite is a Filipino weapons manufacturer. I can't exactly. I think it's the Filipino Weapon Shop or something like that. But they make machetes, knives, swords, and all that type of thing. And they export them all over the world. And for many, many years, their main anvil was quite literally a piece of truck axle in a stump. And that was their main anvil. And they did mind-blowing work on these anvils. And they didn't just do knives and swords, of course, they did armor and all sorts. On this what would be tiny little anvil. And so watching some of these less industrialized nations and their blacksmith work, and you find videos on all over YouTube, is a great way to change your mindset on what an anvil should be. But for the most simple version of anvil that everyone has access to, that will last quite a while if you use the right foresight, is simply a tree stump. We all know that we can use a tree stump and shape it out and use it for forging, dishes and all that type of thing. But even if you have a thin iron plate, a thin metal plate, thin steel plate on top, just as a working surface, I think that the best evidence to support that this will hold up as an anvil would be Roy's ice anvil video, and the fact that he forged on ice with a thin steel plate on top, just so he had a working surface to work on that was also frozen. And that was really good to show that you don't need to preheat an anvil, but that was also really good to show that it was, for me, could show that you could put an iron plate on top of a wooden stump and that would be a perfectly fine anvil. Because
it's the mass that matters. It's the mass that makes the physics work.
That's right.
Yep.
And look, you may need to replace it after, let's say at worst 6 months worth of forging because it's burnt out under the steel plate. Okay. But it's a stump of wood.
Move the plate.
Move the plate, get a new stump. Turn the stump upside down. It's cut an inch off the stump and work a little bit lower. There's a whole heap of workarounds for it. But if that's all you have access to, that's fine. And like I said, that's worst case scenario. You could work for a lot longer on that type of thing. And as with anything in smithing, you can build your tools up. Sure, anvil's one of the few things that we can't actually make. Most people can't actually make. But with a little bit of imagination, a little bit of lateral thinking, you can build yourself a workable anvil-like object, and that can last you a long time. And I'll say this directly: the single only reason why I now have a London pattern anvil is because it was given to me as a wedding present. That's it. Otherwise, I'd still be using Tiny. Tiny, for me, was a fantastic anvil, and I'll never get rid of Tiny. It will live in my workshop, and I will teach people to forge on it, because my anvil is an heirloom tool. It's something that's going to be with me for life.
Same with Bakos.
Tiny, I can, yeah.
I feel you're right there. It's like, I went through a period where I had a couple of extra anvils. I ended up selling them, but Bakos will always be in my shop because it's a great learner. If you bring in students, that you don't really want them bashing your working anvil. It's like here's what I learned on. There you go. That's why ever get rid of something with history like that?
Yeah. And it can also change their mindset as well, in the sense of, you have them working on an anvil like object. They'll start looking, the old saying, if when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. When you've worked on something that isn't an anvil, a stereotypical anvil, you start looking at things and start thinking, if you don't have an anvil, would that make a good anvil? And so it means that they can get into the hobby, or they can get into this wonderful vocation for cheaper. I'm all about getting people into this vocation. As everyone knows, I love it. But if they go, I can't find where I am, an anvil like mine would start at 3,000 Australian dollars, which is about $2,500 US. And my anvil's not a big anvil. It's not a particularly, it's not. I wouldn't call. I don't doesn't have any particular markings I can see on it. You can't call it a Peter Wright or anything like that. It's just a bog standard London pattern anvil. So, and it's nothing special, but it would start at around 3,000, 2,500 to 3,000 Australian dollars.
Right.
So expecting a newbie to pay, like I wasn't willing to pay something like that to get an anvil like that. So expecting someone that's new to the hobby or learning to do that is, for me, unthinkable. So, if you can give them an option, or give someone an option and prove that it works quite well, I think that's a very, very good way to go. So yeah, that's all. That's all I've got to say on the topic. It wasn't quite 45 minutes.
No, you brought the time really well. It brings us to a good. Alexis, do you have anything to add? I know Alexis, for the record, is at work. So in and out is not on video, but is with us in audio.
Maybe busy at the moment.
Maybe busy.
Do you have anything to say, Miss?
Not really. I mean, I kind of interspersed my thoughts on it while you were speaking. But yeah, it's I keep coming back to the Bakos. It's like everybody here has pretty much followed me since the beginning, since I first jumped on YouTube, which is a hilarious story, because that was the reason I started doing live streams on Facebook before YouTube, was so that my family could watch, but they didn't really care. So I found an audience, and they convinced me to move to YouTube, and here we are today. But the earlier watchers will remember, when I first got Bakos, paid $100 for a 200-pound block of steel. Boom. And
can you hear me now?
Now,
Yep.
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Oh,
Okay.
crap. No wonder you guys have been talking over me the whole show.
No kidding. All right.
Yeah,
use
I
the
started
floor.
talking, y'all just keep on going.
Yeah, no, you haven't said a peep since.
I was Yeah, that's awesome. I was going to say the only reason Bacos is still in your shop is because it's a horizontal. It's a handy horizontal surface, and it's basically just too heavy to move.
Yeah, oh yeah,
And
I
you know,
set stuff on it.
that was like that was a timely joke that I started saying it, and then from my perspective, Adam just talked right over me like I wasn't here. I was like, all right, never mind. No, it turns out I wasn't transmitting the whole time. I have no idea why.
Well, you know that we would never just talk over you to ignore you. If we talk over you, it's because we can't hear you.
Yeah, right.
Just assume that from now on.
Talking over me because what I have to say doesn't matter.
Of course not.
Yeah.
My earbud is messing with my ear.
But
So,
yeah, no.
what else do you have to say, Alexis?
That I don't even remember. I mean, like apparently everything that I've said since opening didn't come through. But hey, you know what? Whatever. It's time for final thoughts, and I got nothing. So yeah. Hope to see Adam live this evening. I'm gonna be stuck at work probably till at least dark. So hoping to see Adam go live this evening, and hoping I have the opportunity to pop in and chit chat with everybody, and I'll catch everybody in Jack's live after this. Here coming up in another 28 minutes or so. So hope to see you guys over there. Other than that, y'all have a great weekend, and if it comes down to it, make sure you're taking the time for proper self-care. So y'all have a great week, and I will see you next Sunday.
Yes.
I'd like to apologize to Alexis that it seemed as though I was talking over the top of you. You weren't transmitting through, so I'm really sorry about that. You are important to us, and your opinion is valued and does matter. And I would have loved to hear what you had to say. Unfortunately, you don't remember, but it is important, and I'm sorry that glitch happened. I would have shut up had I heard you.
Yeah.
No worries.
Yeah. I'm like cursing technology right now.
Mm-hmm.
What we need to do is what we need to do each week is get you two over here on the couch so that we don't have interruptions like that.
One day.
No. For every Sunday.
That's what I'm saying. One day it might happen.
Yeah.
So So my final thoughts is as always. The wonderful thing about blacksmithing is our ability to use our imaginations and use our lateral thinking. There's no such thing as a mistake in blacksmithing, only rapid redesigns. So, you might not, for those of you that are listening or watching that are interested in getting into this, those lurkers of you that are out there that, may not actively participate in the chats and whatnot, but you listen to us for the entertainment value or the educational value or whatever reason you listen to us, you have the opportunity to start this hobby, this vocation for pennies, for cheap, for dirt cheap. As long as you have the ability to use a little bit of imagination, or even just take advice from people like us who are relatively impractical, and use it to your own benefit. We are not the first people to come up with these ideas. We've picked them up from other people and recycled them or regurgitated them with our own flavor. Find something that is heavy enough, or not even heavy enough. Find something you can drive into a stump. Find something you can drive. If you can drive a stake anvil into the ground and you can work, in a seated position in the ground. Hey, you've got the whole earth as the mass under the anvil. Don't
overthink it.
Don't
overthink it.
It's the old KISS rule. Keep it simple, stupid.
Well, just thinking on. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, just thinking on the stump anvil, the immediate thought of it would be like the spike, putting a spike into a stump and then hammering on it. Oh, it'll just go deep, drive deeper and deeper. Not necessarily. Don't overthink it. Just do it. If that's what you got to, if that's
Yep.
the worst thing you got to deal with, pop it up and put it in a different spot. Don't overthink it.
Yep, that's exactly right. And keep doing that until you're able to come across, find, save up for, purchase something more adequate. Like I said, my first anvil was tiny, and it was cut up forklift tine, and I welded it together because I had the ability to do that. If I didn't, I would have used something like my first anvil, which was a gold crushing stamp, or a sledgehammer head. The gold crushing stamp. I have to find. Hopefully, I can go to my family's property and pick it up. But I'd love to show it off one day as my first anvil, because it also holds a lot of sentimental value to me. But it wasn't a typical anvil, so you don't need a typical anvil to do good work. But yeah, so that's it. Get out there. Hopefully, I'm able to get out to the workshop this evening. Before we continue any further, I will do our outro. So thank you for joining us here on the Impractical Blacksmith podcast. You can find Alexis at Transcendental Artist Studios on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. You can find me, Adam, at Speargrass Forge on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And you can find Yames right here at Island Metal Forge on YouTube and Discord. I don't believe you have Instagram anymore or Facebook, do you, Yames?
So for the record, they still exist. I just don't use them.
Yep.
It's like I just don't use them.
Yeah, but contacting me via YouTube or via the Discord, that's in Practical, or the Practical Blacksmith Discord. You can catch us live every Sunday morning. It's now at our new time of 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
No,
or
11
Eastern Daylight
a.m.
Saving
Eastern Standard Time.
11 a.m. Sorry, 11 a.m. Eastern, and that is currently, I think it's 12 a.m. Australian Central Standard Time, but check that against your local time, of course, because chimes will change depending on where you are in the world, or where you are in Australia, or where you are in the US. Finally, we generally upload every week to Spotify, Google Podcasts, or your favorite podcast provider. And don't forget to give us a star rating on that. That helps improve our spread and reach to other people that may be interested in blacksmithing. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button if you are here listening and watching on YouTube. Finally, thanks again for joining us, and we will catch you next week. And finally, over to you, Yames, for your final thoughts.
Well, I thought I did my final thoughts. As usual, thank you all for showing up. We appreciate it. Week in and week out, we're here to chat about blacksmithing and our daily lives surrounding blacksmithing. It's bike week over here, so it's about to get really noisy.
Should we mention what we're coming up for next month?
Yes. So we're talking about manipulation. No, I'm not talking about like an ex-wife trying to gaslight you into convincing you that she's not cheating on you. I'm talking about how to manipulate metal in fire. When you're dealing with metal that if you were to touch it, you would lose a finger. It's so hot. You have to be able to control that. Well, there's this brand new technology called tongs, and we are going to go over it next month.
Not just tongs, we're talking about manipulating metal in May. So join us next week, where Alexis and Yames will discuss this topic, because I, of course, will be at work.
We will do our intro to manipulating metal. There will be lots of jokes, fun times to be had by all. If Alexis is trying to make a joke right now, we can't hear you, just so you heads up.
No. I'm just sitting here chilling. I was laughing to myself, manipulating,
Okay.
but yeah.
All right. So with that, we are going to talk to you all later. Y'all have a wonderful day. Check out Jack coming up next over at Jack Pines Blacksmithing, and be sure to tune into Speargrass Forge at Adam's home channel, where he'll be back in the forge. I can't say for the first time in forever because he recently did a live stream, but get with it. Adios, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.